For us, really, it's from pregnancy to the age of 5, because it's when our brain's growing the fastest, it's at its most malleable, so it's really such a critical time to lay the foundations for our future adult selves, really. It's a bit like building a house. And without strong foundations, without this sort of solid start in life, then those building blocks are much harder to build later on in life.
Catherine has an empathic way of explaining. Catherine looks at Roman while explaining, and she makes pauses that anticipate acknowledgement tokens. This behavior makes it easy for Roman to cut in, elaborate on what Catherine's saying, and throw the ball back to her. This is the kind of back and forth that makes conversations comfortable, whereas long-winded monologues are uncomfortable and annoying.
I suppose for kids that haven't had that chance and that opportunity to have a great childhood, it must be even more important, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd love to hear a little bit about your childhood. What was it like?
Genuinely, I always say that the best part of my life is my family, and it has shaped who I am, 100%.
Yeah.
For contrast, let's compare this interview to one of Meghan's interviews.
When you're being pulled in so many different directions and things at the onset sound like such a great idea, but when you really listen to your internal compass, it's very easy for you, if you're listening to it, to say, that's just not right. And you do that gut check. And this was exactly what happened to me with that experience, because a company had approached me and they basically just wanted to do MeghanMarkle.com and put up lots of cute outfits and profit off of all of them, all of which is fine, by the way, if that's what you're into. But for me, there was so much more that I wanted to share, and I really do have an organic and deep love of travel and of food and also of writing. I love writing these think pieces and op-eds about self-empowerment on the site. He had seen sort of the way that this company was putting my site together. He's like, I beg you, please do not go down this path. He's like, use our graphic designer from Couture, let them do the design aesthetic of the TIG, which we worked on painstakingly, and really putting my own personal thumbprint on it. It's my handwriting on the site. The logo is designed like a wine glass with the drop of the wine is the eye on the... She gave me some advice a couple years ago, and she will say it often. She calls me Nutmeg, but she'll be like, Nutmeg, just leave room for magic. 4 days later, I got an email from one of the highest executives for UN Women saying they wanted to work with me.
This comparison shows that Meghan's fine with listing all of her accomplishments without acknowledgement tokens from the interviewer. This is a monologue, not a dialogue.
The pandemic has reminded us just how much we value living in a world where people care for one another, and the importance of feeling connected to the people around us.
Because these lessons seem obvious and uncontroversial, they have an encouraging function. I say uncontroversial because trying to find something positive in something negative isn't always the best strategy. Sometimes it makes the speaker look insensitive.
We went to Rwanda, which was incredible because Rwanda has the highest percentage of female political participants of any other country in the world. In the wake of, obviously, such a horrendous experience that they had. Yes, so many of the men were lost in the genocide, so it gave women an opportunity to either succumb to that or to then find some strength and then mobilize in a way that was really empowering. And I think that's specifically what they've done, which is a great benchmark for what women all over the world could be doing.
Meghan's so fixated on the buzzword empowerment that she doesn't see that it's misplaced in this context. Sometimes the circumstances are too tragic to find anything positive about them. It all comes down to the topic at hand, not to mention the self-awareness of the speaker.
And it's these connections, these relationships, that are founded in the earliest years of our lives. People often ask why I care so passionately about the early years. Many mistakenly believe that my interest stems from having children of my own. And while of course I care hugely about their start in life, this ultimately sells the issue short. Parenthood isn't a prerequisite for understanding the importance of the early years. If we only expect people to take an interest in the early years when they have children, we are not only too late for them, we are underestimating the huge role others can play in shaping our most formative years too.
She went from the personal pronoun I, her own personal situation, to we and our, speaking on behalf of a collective. And which collective? The collective she's rhetorically constituted by literally addressing everyone, the role everyone plays in shaping lives, regardless of their status. Rhetorically, this is a good way to break down barriers while still remaining assertive and unequivocal in denying the objection.
Because the science shows that the early years are more pivotal for future health and happiness than any other period in our lifetime. Because as many as 40% of our children will arrive at school with below the expected levels of development. And because the social cost of late intervention has been estimated to be over £17 billion a year.
With this, Catherine makes it clear that it's not just her opinion and assumption, she gives actual percentages. In other words, she continues the logos appeal rather than the pathos appeal, emotion and pity, that's often overwhelmingly present in speeches like this. It's present, but not overwhelmingly, which is the point. To many people, pathos or too much pathos will seem contrived and exaggerated.
The early years are therefore not simply just about how we raise our children. They are, in fact, about how we raise the next generation of adults. They are about the society we will become. Which is why I wanted to start a society-wide conversation, to hear what people across the UK think about the early years too.
The logos appeal is identified by the little words Catherine uses. The adverb therefore creates a bridge between the statistics and what she thinks as a result of these statistics.
The early years are therefore not simply just about how we raise our children.
Rhetorically, this makes her arguments easy to follow, easy to understand in terms of claims and grounds, even to people who might disagree. She doesn't highlight her own opinions and feelings first and foremost. Instead, she presents evidence of why she thinks the way she does, which comes across as a more mature and proper way of arguing. Using logos-based argumentation doesn't necessitate that the speaker is correct on all counts. But the point is that her argumentation is overt as opposed to covert, even to people who might disagree. In terms of demeanor, she's calm and rational as opposed to dramatic and emotional.
She's an incredibly powerful voice for gender equality, and she continues to speak out and advocate for women's issues and social justice. Her new podcast, Archetypes, just topped the Spotify charts around the world, and
you are the ones driving the positive and necessary change needed across the globe now in this very moment. And for that, I'm so grateful to be in your company today.
Which changes? Which positive changes? Unlike the beginning of Catherine's speech, there's no clarification.
It was several years ago in 2014 that I was first invited to be a counselor at One Young World. Young, ambitious, advocating for the things I deeply and profoundly believed in.
And what were the things she deeply and profoundly believed in? She doesn't tell us, and there's a reason why she doesn't tell us. Because this speech is about image first and foremost, trying to guide people's perception of her. So, unlike Catherine's speech, there's no line of reasoning that's easy for people to follow and relate to.
And I was invited to pull up a seat at the table.
At the table, she says, indicating that this is the kind of table where you get to decide. We still haven't heard what you get to decide, but it doesn't look like we're supposed to either, because this is about branding, not argumentation, not actually advocating for a cause or making an engaging speech.
I think I even saved my little paper place card that said my name on it.
Because she hasn't said anything substantial and factual, she, as a speaker, isn't relatable enough yet to make this deliberate attempt to appear relatable.
Just proof. Proof that I was there. And proof that I belonged.
Will we ever learn about this organization's work? I sure can't wait to find out.
But One Young World saw in me what I wanted to see fully in myself. They saw in me just as I see in you, the present and the future.
It's about her qualities, what they saw in her, not what she saw in them, aside from the chance to get a seat at the table. However, because the speech is so unapologetically self-focused, it's likely to have the opposite outcome of what's intended, that people are actually not as overwhelmed by Meghan's achievements as she wants them to be, to put it very mildly. It's also worth noting that the members of the organization are literally mentioned as a side note.
They saw in me just as I see in you.
Syntactically then, the focus is on Meghan being the present and future, whatever that means. Meghan isn't done addressing the members as a literal side note or sidebar.
And just as a sidebar, earlier this afternoon we sat down with a few of you delegates, and it was incredibly inspiring, the resounding themes that came up about representation, about inclusion, and about trying to shift the global perspective for all of us as a global community to one of curiosity over criticism.
This excerpt shows that to Meghan it's about using the right words because they're devoid of actual and specific content. Thus, she doesn't substantiate her alleged inspiring experience, and as a result, the audience can't relate to what was so inspiring about it. Meghan makes no attempt to present cohesive experiences and arguments, or arguments at all, and just as important, she makes no attempt to create an engaging and relevant experience for the audience, both off and online. Watch this.
I joined you in London in 2019, and by that point, it's fair to say, my life had changed rather significantly. I was now married, and I was now a mom.
Without context, without substance, personal details come across as not only irrelevant to the hearers on a personal level, but also to the summit.
And this week the world is watching as you cement your place in history by showcasing the good that you are doing today, in the present moment, as we embrace the moment of now to create a better tomorrow.
This flies in the face of everything we know about good and effective rhetoric, being clear and to the point. Instead, Meghan uses deeply and profoundly contrived platitudes with a meaning that's not only difficult to see, but is most likely non-existent.
I didn't know much about him, and so the only thing that I had asked her when she said she wanted to set us up was, I had one question. I said, well, is he nice? Because if he wasn't kind, it didn't seem like it would make sense, and so
for us, it's an opportunity to really get to know each other without other people, looking or trying to take photos on their phones and all that kind of stuff. With that comes with the job, comes with the role. But where possible,
yeah. And we were able to really get to know each other that way.